how a domain name and a letter from my former boss pushed me in the direction of financial independence on this episode of Bootcamp MD. Hey guys, this is Dr. Mike Wu Ming with Bootcamp MD. I hope you are having an incredible week. Today we're going to be discussing a subject that might make a few of you uncomfortable, because I know it does for me. And that subject is money, and it's specifically money that I've made in my different businesses, my different online businesses. And as you know, we have a conference coming up called the Bootcamp MD. And Bootcamp MD is for physician entrepreneurs who want to start their own online business and start making extra income outside of their medical practice. Or maybe they already have an online business and they want to take it to the next level. I've got a lot of experience in this arena, and this is the reason why it was important for me to discuss income claims, because I know many of you who are interested in starting an online business, you might be skeptical, and it's good that you're skeptical. Can you replace your income with an online business? And certainly there are many people there are many people who are either physicians or non-physicians, it doesn't matter, who have had online businesses, and the majority of them do fail. And all I can talk about is my own experiences in having an online business for over 20 plus years. But in no way am I making any type of claim that you could be making the same type of income. So that's why it's important that I want to give you this disclaimer, and it's important to my attorneys as well. Success in any type of business requires hard work, dedication, and you need to have great sales and marketing skills. There are many individuals who start a business and will lose money. The information I'm sharing with you is just for educational purposes and is not intended to serve any type of guarantee of income. Okay, with that out of the way, I'm going to talk about my own experiences of having an online business. So the question I just posed, could I replace my income with an online business, is one I had over 15 years ago. And to be honest, I wish they had a workshop like Bootcamp MD where you can get like-minded individuals and sharing information about what they've done, and everybody getting together and pushing and lifting everybody up to help ensure your success. So there were two items that I mentioned: buying a domain name and a letter from my boss, that really got me on the way to financial freedom. So to best understand this, I want to tell my story. And if you've heard about me, say maybe you've been on my podcast or listened to my videos, you may have heard this story. I'll give you the kind of quick version. So I was a primary care physician. I was with a large primary care group practice. We had family physicians, pediatricians, internists, and it was in North County, San Diego, where I currently live today. I signed my contract, I believe my last year of family practice residency. I was excited. Here I was finally going from a resident salary to making the quote big time money as a primary care physician. At the time, my wife was, I believe, 6 months pregnant, and we had a 2-year-old, a rambunctious 2-year-old at the time. And I did what you weren't supposed to do. I bought a house in that area. I was so excited. I signed that contract, and it was for a full-time contract. And me being naive, I'm thinking full-time, that's a 40-hour work week, probably 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, right? You know where this is going. Just because I said it's full-time doesn't mean I work full-time. I worked more than full-time. I was working 50, 60 plus hours a week. I was doing hospital call, and like really tough hospital call. I thought everything, of course, would get easier after residency. It didn't. There were a lot of demands. I was placed on a lot of different committees. For me to get more patients, we had like an extended care, urgent care, and they wanted me to work there, so I was working nights. Eventually I became the urgent care director. I was the director of 3 different nursing homes. I was in charge of getting an EMR in place. I was on a quality management committee. All these different hats, no increase in income. I made the same amount every few weeks. But, I didn't know any better. Then, as I progressed in there, call was getting more tougher, and I wanted to spend more time at home. And the reason being was my wife who was pregnant at the time when we had the baby. A few years later, we found out that he was autistic. I wanted to spend more time with my kids and my family. I wanted to attend some of the doctor appointments he had, the rehab, etc. And I was ready to go. So at the time, I was starting my own business, an online business, and really, it was really beginning to take off. I didn't have a lot of time, but an online business allowed me the opportunity to make some income, and I didn't have to substitute time for money. And it was really, really doing well. Not to the point where I could actually probably leave my job, but it was getting in that direction. Then eventually it started to really start to increase, and I was ready to say goodbye to my work. So I finally got up the nerve, and I was ready to quit becoming a family physician and make the transition to having my own online business, which incidentally started from my laptop. Well, when I finally was able to tell them, let's just say it didn't go very well. First off, they wanted to have time to find a proper replacement, and I could understand that, right? Being a physician, you can't just give 2-week notice, right? There is a transition period, and I wanted to make sure that the patients I currently had were going to be taken care of. So I wanted to make sure there was an adequate transition. But the process took a lot longer than I thought. First it was about a month, then 2 months. Eventually, I think I left after 6 months. The second thing was I was a shareholder with the group, meaning I had to pay more than 5 figures just to get out of my contract. The time came, it was my last day, and I was ready to say goodbye, but my boss, who was actually my colleague all this time, who got promoted to become the president of our company, wanted to have an exit interview. He seemed deeply concerned. He wanted to know why I left. I told him it was for family reasons. My son was autistic, and I wanted to spend more time. And I eventually found a part-time position. My wife wasn't ready for me to quit, so I worked part-time for an Indian health clinic for about a year. He knew that I had some type of side gig, that I was doing, that was doing pretty good, but he really wanted to know the reasons of why I wanted to leave. He wanted to know why. So after some prompting, I eventually told him what he wanted. I told him that, I was getting close to burnout, that I wasn't the only one. The staff was being felt underappreciated and underpaid. I told him the truth, and the president, he nodded, he listened, and he seemed like he was ready to make some changes. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad he did, because I kind of felt validated, knowing that I had exited in good terms, and perhaps my words would enact changes and have a cause of action. Little did I know. So a few weeks later, I get an email from a good friend, a nurse practitioner who still worked there, and she said, "Mike, you need to look at this letter." And the letter wasn't to me, it was about me, and it was sent to all of the other physician shareholders. And she forwarded it to me, and somehow, over 15 years, I kept that email. So I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here. I wanted to share with you probably excerpts of the letter that he gave me. I'm going to take out, of course, any personal information. And here's what the letter said. I met with Mike Ming last Monday for an exit interview. As most of you know, Mike left our group for personal family reasons, and he took a position to allow him more time with his family. I asked Mike to be candid with me and tell him what the clinic's positive points are, as well as things that we could do to improve. He felt the morale of our staff is down quite a bit, especially the nursing staff. He said that the nursing staff feel unappreciated. From a physician's standpoint, he feels that our workload is large and night call is onerous. He didn't enjoy enduring the frustrations of patients that belong to other physicians, but were worked into his schedule because of lack of openings with our PCP. He feels that our front desk and schedulers have been given too much power in determining what patients we are expected to see. On the positive side, he enjoyed the collegiality of working with all of you. That's nice. I resisted the urge to agree with Mike on any of the above issues because that was not my purpose for the meeting. I do believe there's some truth in his observations, although some of it I definitely disagreed with. The timing of my meeting with Mike happened to coincide with some discussions I've had with a few of our managers and directors. We also have observed some things having to do with morale and physicians' attitude that I think need to be addressed. So with that introduction, let me make a few comments and observations of my own. So here is the synopsis of what he got from our exit interview and what, quote, changes could be made to our clinic. My point is, if there are lousy policies or procedures or anything that we're doing poorly, we can change them. For example, is being on call too onerous? Let's get rid of it. We can always hire the hospitals at our hospital to do our admissions for us. Are you tired of 32 hours per week of scheduled patient contact hours? We can cut it back. How about starting your day at 10 and getting out at 4? I'm more of a morning person, so I don't really like the 12 to 8 shift much. Anyone else tired of extended hours? Let's close it down. If patients need to be seen after 5 p.m., they can go to the AR. Have we made blank, which was our main scheduler, a little too powerful? We can knock her down a notch or two. We can let you set your own schedule hours, and you can create a long list of what you will see and who you'll not see, and for how long and when in the day you want to do it. Each physician's big long list can be given to the front desk to refer to when a patient comes in late or wants to make a certain kind of appointment. Tired of all the referrals and answering pending and all the other managed care hassles? Let's stop taking HMO insurances. Tired of case managers nagging you to see patients in the hospital and they're trying to get you to expedite them through the system? Let's fire them all and take our chances with Medicare and indemnity insurances. So, as you can see, I'm reading this and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, and obviously he wasn't taking my concerns seriously. There's one thing that he had said in the letter that it was really honest. If you're not getting your way, buck up and move on. And so that's what I did. So as I mentioned, that letter really gave me motivation, and I really started to hustle on my business. So let's, fast forwarding to today, many physicians right now are employed. I think I recently read an article in Kevin MD where it said that most physicians are working paycheck to paycheck. And that just blew me away. Now, the average doctor, if you take primary doctors and especially doctors, they're making probably about $200,000 to $250,000 a year. And recently, there was another book that came out called The Millionaire Next Door. It says the average salary of someone who is a millionaire is about $250,000. So not that far off. So potentially, most physicians should have the potential to become a millionaire. As I mentioned, I left my primary care group. I worked part-time for about a year, and eventually I left that as well. I wanted to be able to replace my income as a doctor. And so I got this thinking in my head is, who are the doctors right now who are millionaires? So potentially, a physician should have the ability to become a millionaire. I was hustling on my business, and anything about being an entrepreneur is you're going to have your ups and downs. And I remember hearing another story where I believe it was a business friend of mine who told me this story about the actor Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, you probably know from movies like Dumb and Dumber and in shows like In Living Color. He's a comedian, obviously well known. But when he was a struggling actor in 1985, he wrote a check himself for $10 million. But he dated it 10 years later in 1995. And the reason why he wrote the check was he put acting services rendered. As I mentioned, he was a struggling actor at the time. He wasn't getting the roles, he wasn't getting the gigs. But the check was something that he kept, I believe, in his wallet that he would look in from time to time, telling him that was the reason, by looking at this check, it gave him a reason to continue going on to auditions. And then in 1995, in the 90s, he got a job in Living Color, and from that TV show, he was able to get a movie deal. In 1995, he got the leading role for Dumb and Dumber, who paid him $10 million. Now, what does it have to do with me? Now, as I mentioned, I studied everything about financial success. I want to know who are the most successful doctors out there, and were there millionaires who were MDs? And I've always been goal oriented, and I had this goal that I wanted to make $1 million by, I believe it was 3035. And anytime I get started on a business, I first thing I do is I look to see if I have a domain name, if I can buy the domain name. I've had some crazy ideas. So we started a Belize Med Spa, so we look at BelizeMedSpa.com. Or if I'm going to do a book, like BookWriting.com. If I'm going to teach a course on financial planning, FinancialPlanningForDoctors.com. I wanted to see if I can get the domain name for it. And for whatever reason, I wanted to see if I can get the domain millionairemd.com. And again, I was a struggling doctor, and I believe I even did this when I got the domain name when I was still working. And the important part is, it wasn't that I just wanted to become a millionaire. I don't want to focus just on the money. It was what the money could give me. And that was the freedom to do what I want, to become financially successful. I read all these books about, successful entrepreneurs like Richard Branson and Bill Gates and Robert Kiyosaki. And just like as if you want to become a great surgeon, you want to study all the great surgeons. So if you want to become successful, you want to study the people who are financially successful. And so I bought the domain name Millionaire MD. And I thought that the owner of someone who's got Millionaire MD should be a millionaire. So it was kind of like that Jim Carrey check. It was a reminder to myself, what are my goals? And so I couldn't find any doctor who made their millions by being a company employed doctor. It was through being an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I teach is about the 5 levels of being a physician. If you haven't, check that out. Go look for it on a podcast. I believe it's podcast number 3, where we talk about there are different financial levels you need to become as a physician. The ones who were millionaires were inventors. They were involved in hospital mergers. They were involved in all different types of businesses. They were often entrepreneurs. So I bought the domain name, even though I wasn't a millionaire at the time, because that was my goal. And if you know anything about buying a domain name, you get a notification each year. So each year I renewed the domain name. I said, well, continue to renew this until I was able to get there. So very similar to the story about the check. It was a reminder to myself of what the goal that I wanted to accomplish, that allowed me to hustle, that allowed me to go to workshops, to go find mentors, to go and find people to teach me about becoming financial success and about having multiple streams of income. I took that as a challenge. I created more courses, developed more customers, and 6 months later I was able to double my income. And as you can see in this, I was able to report to that a few years later, I finally was able to reach that goal of making over $1 million in my business, and that's led to more successes down the way. Now I let go of that domain name. I was able to do it. Now I don't have the domain name anymore. If it's available, you should probably purchase it. Maybe it'll work for you. It did for me. But again, I don't want to focus on the money. It was what the time freedom that the money allowed me to have. It allowed me more time. It allowed me to see my kids. Kind of one of the coolest things that I was able to do was being able to be one of the only fathers who would pick up their kids from school. And being the son of a physician who wasn't always there for me, that was really, really important. I was able to, my son who was eventually was autistic, I was able to help raise funds for that school, and that school is still in existence today, and got involved in lots of different charities. That's what the money allowed me to do. So that's my story. I want to hear about your successes. And again, I'll give one last plug to Bootcamp MD. If you're someone who wants to develop your own internet business and you're a healthcare professional, I invite you to come. Again, as I mentioned, I wish I had something like this 20 years ago. It didn't exist. I don't do this because this is a moneymaker for me. I do it because I see many physicians who are struggling, and for me, entrepreneurship was the way for me, and it could be for you. Go ahead and sign up at BootcampMD.com. There's a link down below, and they get you all the details. As always, guys, don't look backward. Keep moving forward.